Hi, everyone. Sarah MacArthur here from Roswell, New Mexico, and I am here to talk about, again, another chapter in Project 2025, Mandate for Leadership, the Conservative Promise. Today's chapter, and I've been jumping all over the place left and right, and today's chapter is about the Department of Labor, which I think we can all agree is pretty important since it governs, employees' rights and employers' rights as well. And I would like to talk to you about that today and some of the things they have planned. So, oh my gosh, I got a bunch of notes. Okay, chapter 18. So one of the first things I thought, I'm going to tell you who it is that, who wrote, hi, Cindy. Okay, so I am going to tell you who it is that wrote this forward and mission statement and all that. His name is Jonathan Berry. And who is he? Well, he's a lawyer, and he helped to get Neil Gorsuch, as well as dozens of other federal judges, appointed to the bench during Trump's presidency. He had a big part in a decision called King versus Burwell, Affordable Care Act, and he presented that to the Supreme Court. He went to Yale, and during that time that he was there, he was the speaker of Yale's College of Political Unions. And then he also went to Columbia Law School and got several, prizes and awards, things of that nature. So who did he clerk for? Why, Samuel Alito, one of our more conservative members of the Supreme Court at this time. He also clerked for a man named Jerry E. Smith, who I didn't have time to research today. And I just noticed that he's been on a speaking schedule because he's also a member of the Federalist Society, which is, I don't even know how that society is actually legal, I guess, but they're so heavily funded by the Koch brothers and the Heritage Foundation, and then through PACs and dark money, Leonard Leo, and he at the Federalist Society is being asked to give speeches and speak at different places. So this Jonathan Berry character has given speeches, and guess who he was on the stage with in June? It's a woman named Erin Hawley, and Erin Hawley is the wife of Senator Hawley. So it's all interconnected. All these conservatives are, helping one another to stay in the positions of power that they've gained, and helping each other's agenda, whatever that happens to be. And if it's religious, as in the case of Erin Hawley, who is trying to get rid of the mifepristone abortion pill, she presented that before the Supreme Court. Then that happens, and she is able to. She's just interconnected, and that's really the point that I wanted to make on that issue. Okay, hi roommate. Okay, so starting on page 581, Department of Labor and related agencies. Okay, so some of those agencies that are covered under that: Department of Labor, Equal Employment Opportunity Committee, the National Labor Relations Board, the National Mediation Board, Federal Mediation and Conciliation Service, the FMCS, and then the Pension Benefit Guarantee Corporation. That's a lot. Okay, so those are the agencies that are covered under this. I am not going to get in 30 minutes through this entire thing because I want to talk to you about what's in here. And I in the margins I've written BS, a lot, which is just terrible. Okay. This is their take on things. In the mid 20th century, the political questions and were brought about by labor conflict, and the civil rights movement with the emergence of the workplace. And so they feel like the Department of Labor has acted as a damper on social and economic life. They don't actually feel like it's helped. And who do the conservatives really work for at this time in place? They work for corporations and businesses. Although when they talk in this book, it sounds a lot like they really are for the workforce. But when you read between the lines, you figure out that no, they're not really. Okay, so one of the first things they talked about as their goal, Mr. Berry wrote about, was to reverse the DEI revolution in labor policy. And what does that mean? Diversity, equity, and inclusion. We've talked about that. And they want to eliminate that. They don't think that should be something that is promoted by the Department of Labor. And I just can't even begin to tell you how ridiculous that sounds, because, the truth is that this is a country made up of immigrants that is very diverse, and it should be inclusatory. It should include them. And so they want to eliminate that. The next administration should eliminate every one of these wrongful and burdensome ideological projects. They want to eliminate racial classifications and critical race theory training. They feel like the Biden administration has pushed racial equity in every area of our national lives. Yes, they have. It's considered progressive and liberal. And why wouldn't you push those things? So not pushing those things, what's the opposite of not pushing those things? Is to say that you are happy with the privileges that are given to a group of people in this country at the exclusion of other people. And when we talk about inclusion, we want everyone to have the same opportunities, the same rights, and the yes, I agree. It's work of madmen. And so it's important that we, focus on that issue. It says critical race theory, and this is them speaking, categorizes individuals as oppressors and victims based on race. Non-discrimination and equity are the law. DEI is not. So they're saying, oh, well, we have laws like the civil rights law that made discrimination, not okay. Well, that's not really what they're saying. They're saying we want to go back to a period of time where discrimination is okay. And I will point to some very specific instances of them actually wanting to discriminate. They want an executive order from the administration on day one, I guess. And then they want Congress to pass a law prohibiting the federal government from using taxpayer dollars to fund all critical race theory training. Critical race theory is a concept that was developed in the 1970s. There were a number of people that were part of that, and their names are Derek Bell, Alan Freeman, Kimberly Crenshaw. In specific, she had a lot to do with it. And they took ideas, there are a number of other people too, but they took those ideas and developed what critical race theory is. And I wrote it down for everybody. It's negative stereotypes assigned to minorities that benefit white people and increase oppression is what I've written down, that they're perfectly happy to eliminate those things and have stereotypical things about minorities be the norm so that they can still oppress minorities. So, gosh, I wish I could read my writing. They want to prohibit race classifications and quotas. They want to eliminate the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission and the data collection that they do. They don't want to do that anymore because they don't want to be aware of the numbers of people of different color or different sex or transgender. They don't want to know those things anymore. And therefore, there wouldn't be any discrimination if they didn't have to classify them, is what they're saying. By collecting data, the government is in itself categorizing people, is what they're saying. They want to amend Title VII and eliminate disparate impact liabilities. I don't know if anybody else knows what those are. Disparate impact is when an unintentional action has been taken. And I can think of the reasons that it was taken over at when I was a state employee. We used to have to once a year watch the civil rights tape, and they would show us why disparate impact. Okay, so they used an example of the Parks Commission, and the Parks Commission was going to replace a park in an upper scale, primarily white neighborhood. And one of the guys at the table said, well, that's not really right that you do that. And they said, well, it's been 5 or 6 years since we've replaced that. And we've replaced the other ones over there, 3 years ago. So we shouldn't have to replace that one yet. Well, it's a disparate impact because you should replace the one that was in the poorer neighborhood because it was more condensed and people use that playground equipment more. And so the number of people using that park were much more impacted by not having new equipment because it was being used regularly on a daily basis. And so that's the disparate impact that is unintentional. And when a civil rights violation is found out, then they go in and they say, no, this has got a negative impact on a group or a group of people, particularly minorities in very condensed urban settings. And so we don't want to do that. And the Civil Rights Act protects that. They want to get rid of it in the Department of Labor now, if they were to take over. Unintentionally discrimination practices that negatively affect a protected group of people. That's what that's called. They are supposed to ensure that programs get federal dollars, not administered in a way which perpetuates past discrimination. So, and those were one, page 583. You can look this up in your book if you ever get it. There's 3 lawsuits, one in 1969, Gaston City versus U.S., in 1971, Griggs versus Duke Power Company, and again, in 1980, the City of Rome versus the United States. And they want Congress to rescind the Executive Order 11246, which was signed in 1965, where the feds commit to non-discrimination, and they want that order rescinded. And that would be bad. Okay, so rescind the regulations and prohibitions and discrimination based on sex, sexual orientation, gender identity, trans states, and sexual characteristics. So that's what rescinding that executive order from 1965 would do. It would make it so that you can discriminate against them. So if it's protecting discrimination and protecting you from discrimination by removing it, they're saying, well, now we can discriminate. How's that work? Okay, page 581 talks about pro-life measures. Let me get my pages caught up because I went through those pages very quickly. All right, pro-life measures. They want to promote pro-life workplace accommodations for mothers. Well, who wouldn't want that? That sounds great, right? Protect life and promote pro-family policies. Current law, the Pregnancy Discrimination Act, provides non-discrimination protections in the workplace for pregnancy, childbirth, and related medical conditions. The Pregnant Workers Fairness Act requires employers to make reasonable accommodation for women to the known limitations related to the pregnancy, childbirth, and related medical conditions, unless the accommodation would impose an undue hardship. And then it says at the very last sentence in this paragraph, it says, but none of these laws require an employer to provide health insurance benefits for elective abortion. They want to pass a law under the pro-life measures. They want to pass a law requiring equal or greater benefits for pro-life support for mothers and clarifying abortion exclusions. So that means it must provide equal or greater benefits for pregnancy, childbirth, maternity, and adoption. This law should also clarify that no employer is required to provide any accommodation or benefits for an abortion. So they're going to change that and take that out so that women that currently enjoy those things in the states that allow those things, they want to make it a federal law that you cannot require an insurance company or an employer to provide those things to you. They want to keep anti-life benefits out of benefit plans, i.e., is that some benefit attorneys and pro-choice advocates have argued since the Supreme Court, Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health Organization decision, that long-standing doctrine of Employee Retirement Income Security Act of 74, which is called ERISA, preemption should block individual states' efforts to prohibit employers from helping employees procure abortions via offering various kinds of coverage under employee-sponsored benefits. ERISA should not be allowed to trump states' ability to protect innocent life, human life in the womb. Congress and DL and the Department of Labor should clarify that ERISA does not preempt states' power to restrict abortion, surrogacy, or other anti-life benefits. So yes, if they can, they will. They will put a national ban on women having healthcare decisions that include abortion. But they're attacking it from all sides, not just a little bit, but no insurance, no federal dollars. We're going to lose that contract if you do offer those things. Those are, it's all in the mix, and that's what they're doing. And so now, moving on, they want to talk about religion. And religion is to provide robust protections for religious employers. They want the administration, the next conservative administration, to issue an executive order protecting religious employers and employees. The president should make clear via executive order that religious employers are free to run their businesses according to their religious beliefs, general non-discrimination laws notwithstanding, and support participation of religious employees and employers as federal contractors and in federal activities and programs, which they don't. That is not a thing. Federal employers do not actually defer to religious employees and employers or contractors that are hired. And you can't impose your religious views on anybody that's getting federal dollars. Okay. Title VII's religious organization exemptions, Congress should clarify to make it more explicit that these employers may make employment decisions based on religion, regardless of non-discrimination laws. So, again, giving priority to the religious views over the laws that are in place now. They want to rescind them or retract them or obliterate them and let religious people, or who pretend to be religious people, evangelical fundamentalists, make decisions that impact their employees. I.e., we're not going to offer you any birth control on your insurance plan, if we even offer you an insurance plan. And they get really funky later on about hours and pay and overtime pay and stuff, but we'll get into that. They instead want to provide a robust accommodation. Title VII requires reasonable accommodations for employees' sincerely held religious beliefs, observances, and practices, unless it poses an undue hardship on the employer's business. These accommodation protections also apply to issues related to marriage, gender, and sexuality. And I did kind of want to go into, people don't understand what woke means, and I want to tell you what woke means. What is a woke culture in the workplace? Woke culture originally emerged as a term used in African American communities, raised in awareness of unfair systems and takes action to address them. It encouraged social consciousness and activism. In the woke culture, individuals question authority and support marginalized groups. And this whole book is all about anti-woke. And it's just alarming to me that they're basically saying, we want to change our country into a racist, fascist kind of a state where people don't have the same rights as those of us who are in power. Not the way I was raised and not the way it should be. So just saying, I'm being all sarcastic here. Woke is now defined in the dictionary as aware of and actively attentive. Yes, that's exactly what they want. That's true. Oh, I love having someone to interact with. Thank you. Yay. Woke is defined as aware of and actively attentive to important facts and issues, especially issues of racial and social justice. And it was identified as U.S. slang at first. It originated and gained more widespread use beginning in 2014 as part of the Black Lives Movement. And the last thing I think I wrote about that was, well, we're not there yet. So we're going to talk about that in a second. That's paid time off, but we'll get there. So we're moving on now to the next section, and it's the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. They does not have rulemaking authority under Title VII and other laws it enforces. Yet it issues guidance, technical assistance, and other documents, including some that push new policy positions, which we all know they want to make illegal. And the Supreme Court, now backing up a second, going back to the Supreme Court, they just issued guidance on the Chevron decision. And that said, agencies shouldn't be allowed to create laws and make policy, even though they're the experts. And even though Congress said, yes, we defer to them and the experts in those agencies, the Supreme Court, right before they did the Trump immunity decision, issued that one. And because the Trump immunity decision was such a foundational change, people miss the fact that the Chevron doctrine was also a huge foundational change. And so when they've got that in here, they had the Supreme Court help them so that they can say stuff like, EEOC should disclaim its regulatory pretensions. That's a sentence in this book. Affirm decision-making via majority vote of commissioners. So right now, the EEOC has what's called a chair, and he has the unilateral action, or he can delegate to his staff to make decisions about things that are happening in his organization. But they don't want that. They want now the majority to be the majority vote of the commission, which I don't know how many people are on this commission. I know there's a couple of commissions like the FCC, 5 people. So they change out people when the new president comes in, and ultimately that person generally, or that commission or that board goes in terms of the political party that's in charge and in control. And so that's what they're saying they want to go back to for the EEOC. They want to disclaim power to enter into consent decrees. And so EEOC has worked with, people that have been brought up on charges or companies and things, and they don't want them to make consent decrees anymore. They said that's too much authority for them. They want to reorient enforcement priorities towards claims of failure to accommodate disability, religion, and not pregnancy, but not abortion. So what does that mean? They want to change back they want to go back to when they could make it into that they don't have any business making decisions about whether or not people are being discriminated against. Again, they want the freedom to discriminate, so they want to remove the guardrails. Is how I'm understanding this. They say they want to do all these great things, and then when you really read between the lines, what they're really saying is, we don't want you to have control over anything that we do. So, okay, refocusing labor regulation on the good of the family. And now we're going to go into this huge long thing about family, and all kinds of laws being made to protect the family and screw the other person. The DEI revolution affected not only the administrative state, but also targeted much of the private sector. Owing to the combination of regulatory pressure and eager human resources offices in the private sector, much of American labor and employment policy has been institutionally oriented towards woke goals. And when you define woke and you say, what is being woke? Woke is trying to prevent people from being discriminated against. So I just translate that to, we don't want people to not be discriminated against. We want to discriminate against them. And I'm just like, yeah, I could never be a Republican. And just as a sidebar, I left the Republican Party when they outed Valerie Flame in the New York Times Magazine. I just read it one Sunday and I said, hey, Dad, look at this. They just outed a CIA agent. And he's like, they wouldn't do that. I was like, they did. And I gave it to him and he read it. He goes, oh my God, they did. And I said, I'm done being a Republican. I can't even stomach this crap. And that was back in Scooter Libby and Oliver North days. So, I mean, I was done. All right. Anyway. Now, this is something that they say, and we're under the chapter about good for the family. And it says, allow workers to accumulate paid time off. Wow, that sounds great. No, it's not. Lower and middle income workers are much more likely to be in jobs that are subject to overtime laws that require employers to pay time and a half for working more than 40 hours. So then we go into, and I said, that's a bad deal, because what they're really saying, and as you get into the weeds of the rest of this, chapter here, or this portion of this chapter, they're saying that they want Congress to enact the Working Families Flexibility Act. And what is that? Well, this would allow employees in the private sector the ability to choose between receiving time and a half pay or accumulating time and a half paid time off, a choice that many public sector workers have already, which is not necessarily true because I work for the state and you get told which one you're going to get. For example, an individual will work 2 hours of overtime every week for a year. If they did that, he or she would accumulate 4 weeks of paid time off to use for paid family time off, vacation, or for any reason. The problem with that is that they're skirting and getting around. And later on in the chapter, they talk about, let's not do it on a 2-week basis for overtime. Let's evaluate it on a larger scale. And that way, like if you work like 70 hours one week and only 30 hours another week, then, there's no overtime because we're going to count it over a month. We're going to count the overtime over a month. So what they're really doing and saying is, yeah, I agree. It is. But you have to read it, and there's a lot of, a lot of the promoters and people on the internet are able to condense it down into like sound bites. And I just can't do that. I have to understand what's really happening. And so as I kept reading, I realized that what they were really saying was that they want to change the Fair Labor Standards Act to require workers to be paid time and a half hours worked on the Sabbath. They want them to be paid and extend the hours over a month-long period. And then they're like, this is such a good deal for you because you could use it as paid time off later, but you're not earning it in the same way. So it's not really time and a half. Does that make sense? Okay, going back here. They said Congress should incentivize on-site childcare. Sounds good. I don't have a problem with that. But then they wanted to make sure across the spectrum, on-site puts the least stress on the parent-child bond. But then they want to have the Fair Labor Standard Act, FLSA, clarify that an employer's expenses in providing on-site childcare are not part of an employee's regular rate of pay. Oh, thanks. You're welcome. Cindy's on chatting with me while we're doing this. I'm sorry, Harry. I'm very busy right now. This is my dog. Say hi, Harry. And this is Ramsey. Okay. Go lay down. Okay. I circled one of these things and wrote bullshit. Sorry. Aww. DOL should commit to honest study of the challenges for women in the world of professional work. What do you think that means? Let me read it again. The DOL should commit to an honest study of the challenges for women in the world of professional work. It says the Women's Bureau of DOL tends towards a politicized research and engagement agenda that puts predetermined conclusions ahead of empirical study. And I would believe that, except for there's no footnote. So there's no site sourced or anything like that. And I know I talked much earlier when I started this and said, when you go and you read the citations that they've listed, it's generally somebody that's in their camp that wrote some article that was published in one of their publications that they're citing themselves in terms of, this is what we believe. So if I put it in here as a citation, well, it's now a footnote. It's valid. Well, it's not. And in this case, they didn't actually use a footnote. They didn't actually cite anything. So what they're really saying is we should evaluate whether women should be in the workplace. That's what they really mean. Do you think that the women's thing should actually study whether women should be working there? It says the Bureau should rededicate its research budget towards open inquiry, especially to disentangle the influences on women's workforce participation. What does that mean to you? And to understand the true causes of earnings gaps between men and women. That's an awkward sentence. I think they wrote that wrong. So what that says to me is we should figure out why women aren't making as much money as men. And maybe they just shouldn't work. Maybe they should just go home and be family oriented and not engage in the workforce. Because, we've got this organization and they always just politicize everything. They don't really tell you the real truth. And the real truth is that women contribute vast amounts to the workforce. All right. Equalized retirement savings across married households. The limit on individual contributions to a 401k work-based retirement account is $22,500 for 2023. Individuals who do not work or do not have access to a work-based retirement account can save up to $6,500 in an IRA. To equalize access to tax-free retirement savings for married couples, the limit for married couples on 401k and similar work-based retirement savings accounts should be double the limit for individuals, regardless of the allocation of work between the couple. In other words, let's favor the married people, not the single people. They want Congress to establish an assistant commissioner for family statistics. And then they said here, and I wrote for what? I don't get it. What are they getting at here? And then later on they said, oh, we have an alternative view. So that was them explaining for what. It says Congress should require the Bureau to establish a pilot survey with a sample comparable to the BLS current population survey Bureau of Labor Statistics current population survey that would publish monthly estimates for measures of the American family's well-being and appropriate sufficient funds for that purpose. So in other words, you need to create a situation where they're going to fund it. They want it to be paid for, and they're going to evaluate that information, but they don't tell you what they're going to do with it. They just want to do it. Congress should require that the consumer price index market basket include measurable family essential goods. I don't even know what that means. So the alternative view says, while metrics in the state of American families and civil society are important and useful, monthly statistics would be of little additional value and could end up causing unnecessary confusion and concern. Funding should be oriented towards improving the timeliness of annual family statistics. So there is an area where they talk about, well, this report only comes out once a year. So, but now they're saying, well, let's establish a new pilot survey and have it be more frequent. But they don't tell you what they're going to do with that piece of information. And that's troublesome to me. I mean, why should I believe an agency needs creating or a new group of people are in your business and requiring the Department of Labor to get statistics on women and families and that kind of stuff? Yes, they are. They are making it hard for women to stay in the profession, or they will if they get a chance to. I'm so excited about Kamala. Is everyone excited about Kamala? And I mean, I love Joe, and Joe did a lot of great things for our country, and he brought us back from the abyss and COVID, and 1 million people died in this country. Yes. Yeah. And then Kamala, that was nice that he did that. Now the Republicans are freaking out and going, she can't have that money that was Joe's, and she can't do this, and let's impeach her. Some guy from, was it Tennessee, that actually decided he was going to turn in impeachment on Kamala, but then Mike Johnson went on vacation, said, oh no, Congress is on vacation, so we can't do that now. Okay, so that's all really strange stuff. All right. And so Sabbath rest. We're still underneath the family orientation portion of this Department of Labor. And I'm checking my time. Oh, I'm at 30 minutes already. Okay, let me finish this part. God Gord ordained the Sabbath as a day of rest, and until very recently, the Judeo-Christian tradition sought to honor that mandate by moral and legal regulations of work on that day. They are using God and religion to dictate policies. Simple as that. That's what they're doing. Yeah. Did you see my post today earlier? I put a post out. It said, oh my God, it was funny. Hold on, let me see. I wrote it myself, so I'm very proud. And I wrote, a national security expert versus a national security threat. So anyway, all right. Congress needs to encourage communal rest by amending the Fair Labor Standard Act to require that workers be paid time and a half for hours worked on the Sabbath. There's an alternate view of that. And it says, conservatives believe the government's role is to protect the free exercise of religion by eliminating barriers as opposed to erecting them. Well, so then they also want to say that Congress needs to clarify overtime for telework applies only to employees exceeding 10 hours of work from home a day, and the total hours for the week to exceed 40. I want to finish this one section. DOL should clarify an employee given the option to telework need only record time if the quantity of work assigned for that day exceeds the usual amount of work. DOL should clarify that a home office is not subject to OSHA regulations and that time to set up a home office is not compensable, meaning we won't pay you to set it up, and eligible for overtime calculations. Even if those reimbursements are repetitive, like internet and cell phone, they don't want to pay those things for you for your home office. Okay, so I'm going to stop at page 590. Can you believe I only made it through? It looks like 9 pages, and there's more. There's way, way more, and I read way, way more. So, oh my gosh. All right, I'll come back to this chapter next week or maybe in 3 days or something, and I'll do that. Yeah, so that's what I'm probably going to do is come back in about 3 days. Okay. Cindy, I'm so glad you were here with me and interacting. Thank you so much for doing that. I appreciate it. And it made it a little more fun for me today than it has in the past. But that's some of the stuff that they want to do. And that's just 9 pages of the Department of Labor. So pages 581 to 591. 590. And so chapter 18, Department of Labor, from the massively asinine Project 2025. Anyway, I'm Sarah. I'm going to sign off now. And I really appreciate everyone that's going to watch this. And if you can, tell your friends to subscribe. Like the post, and then it gets a little more playtime and it gets like elevated, I guess. And I've put in the subject line Project 2025 so that it'll still get there. I'm 8 minutes over time. Thank you, Cindy. We'll talk to everyone again, maybe in 3 days. Okay, thanks. Bye.